I'm happy to kick us off.
Great.
Um, yeah, so Danny, today we're going to talk about requests, and yeah, I'll just hand it over to you. Maybe you can phrase kind of the angle that you'd like to touch on today.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm dazzled by requests. They're kind of revelation for me, what they open and enable. And yeah, I think I'll start with a little anecdote and then we can unfold and unpack the significance of that and why I find it personally significant and hopeful and empowering. So this comes from Dr. Tim Thayer, sharing with his permission, uh, from my current Art of Honesty course. And Tim said, I'd like to celebrate a dialogue request with you. A dialogue request is a request not to do some action, but actually for something particular that we would appreciate or enjoy right now, here in the moment of our interaction. So he shared, I was walking with my mom and telling her about a school that my wife and I decided to send our son to. I shared how excited and warm-hearted we felt about this school. She said something like, okay, and brought the conversation in a different direction. I felt a pang of pain in not having our happiness explicitly resonate with her. Then I felt empowered remembering dialogue requests. I asked her if there was a part of her that resonated with the emotion we felt of our son going to the school. She very happily engaged, and we spent the next 5 to 10 minutes sharing from that place of connection. So simple. For one, I just feel happy reading that. So simple and so not to be taken for granted. How many of us know that experience of this kind of inner wanting to be met in a certain kind of way in response to our sharing, and then being kind of left hanging, left with the experience of being unmet rather than met, and the person goes off in some other direction, and so often we just kind of leave it at that and go along for the ride, and then carry that. Maybe it feels a bit heavy, downcast, disappointed, deflated, sometimes also resentful or bitter. And of course, that can be in varying degrees. It can be just a bit there, kind of flavoring the experience, or it can be uh, much more intense and really dominating our inner landscape. And of course, if it were just, one such moment, then it might not be such a big deal. But it seems, in my experience, so often that becomes the whole tenor of relationships, or of what we come to expect in relating, kind of really hoping to be met, or longing to be met, or maybe helpless around being met with that kind of resonance, that precise resonance, or enthusiasm for or in our enthusiasm, and the preciousness of that. And I think when that builds up over time, it's really, to put it very eloquently, a bummer. And a real bummer. And quite lonely. I think that's, maybe that's my experience of it. There's a kind of loneliness in that, and a sorrow. And it's like it says in the Torah, Lo tov heyot adam levado. It's not good for a person to be alone in that. And what's exciting for me here is not just the experience that Tim had of being met, but what led to that, which was his
Mhm.
realizing a kind of relational agency. I mean, sometimes we're fortunate and we're with people who are attuned and responsive of their own initiative, and I find that just lovely. I'm grateful to have some of those people in my life. But if that's the only way we have access to it, then it's a kind of disempowered dependency. And what Tim demonstrated is actually we're not just left at the luck or lack thereof of the attunement and the initiative of the person with us to offer that resonance, because we can do this thing which is so simple but maybe not easy or not familiar, which is to reach out and to make a request and to tell the person, not in a demanding way, you need to be like this, not in that kind of controlling way. And you can really feel in his tone that's not the vibe there, but just saying, hey, can you relate to this, or do you have resonance, or is there anything about that touches you? One of the most powerful experiences I had in recent years was sharing something very important to me with my parents, and following it up or ending the expression by saying, is there anything about that touches you? And that focuses attention in a very direct way. It tells the other person, actually, what would I like from you now in response to what I've shared, as opposed to just putting something out there and hoping that of the millions of possible responses, you'll choose one that is satisfying and meaningful for me.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I love this. I love it. As you told me the story, Danny, I was thinking of myself in that situation, and then I noticed that the initial tendency when the mother just said, okay, and carried on talking about something else. Yeah, I was initially like, I noticed being bummed in my body, and then this movement of like going away from, like checking out, going away from, like, all right, I'll find what I need somewhere else, not from you.
Yeah. A
And
kind of
then,
giving up, but with a little bit of a protest at the same time, like a withdrawal protest.
yeah, which which is not in line with the sense of agency that you're talking about now. And when I kind of gave my own voice to the agency, the words that came up for me was like, hang on a sec, what do I want from this conversation right now? And then that question kind of grounded me or landed me in myself. And then from there, that question could arise of actually, I want connection. And then the skill you're talking about of like a dialogue request and asking specifically what's touching here, what resonates for you here. Yeah, almost that like, gee, wow, I so want that possibility that came up for Tim of being reminded, oh, actually, I know about dialogue requests. I want that possibility to be with me in that moment, um, to present another opportunity for me instead of perhaps going with my automatic pattern, which might be disconnecting or protesting, to actually there's another way, and reminding myself that I have that choice.
Yeah, I love it. And also, yeah, when you speak about, like when you said, yeah, what do I want in this conversation? I just feel my body kind of become more upright. Also, like exploring what is it like to inhabit the perspective or the orientation of what do I want in this conversation. Like as I say those words, I feel myself more here, more embodied. There's more power, and isn't that what we're here for? To, or a big part of what we're here for, right? Like it says in the Ethics of Our Fathers, if I am not for myself, then who will be for me? Of course, there's the other part of if I'm just for myself, then who am I? But if I am not for myself, who will be for me? We are here to be the embodied agents of will that lives through us. That, like I heard from Robert Gonzalez, how is life reaching for life through you? And making a specific request is a way of just being in the flow of that reaching. It's a very, very basic movement, But because of developmental and cultural conditioning, we can learn what's called a learned helplessness. So if we have the formative experience that our reaching is not met, we might give up on reaching and kind of generalize a conclusion about reaching being unfruitful, which may have been true in certain contexts, but as adults, and especially when we learn and become skillful with making requests in a way which tend more to arouse resonance and the eagerness of possible contribution rather than controlling demand, you need to reply to me like this. That's very different from what we're talking about. It's like, oh, it would give me such a sense of the joy of sharing and being met if you would share if you have any resonance. That then we can kind of reclaim the power of our reaching and our ability to reach out into the world and reach out into relation and get and bring in the resource experiences which bring us alive and which make it worthwhile of staying here in relation. Because what you said makes a lot of sense. If relation is a place where I'm not met, it's not so nourishing, then it makes a lot of sense to look for where else I can go, up into my mind, out of my body, inside, elsewhere, online, everywhere else but here. But as we start to rediscover and to have some encouraging experiences of being able to reach for what we want and get it, take it in, that's really redemptive, transformational, revelatory experience.
Love it. And I wonder if you can maybe even give some more phrasing on what someone could say as they reach, because I'm touched by the vulnerability of reaching. And really, as Robert Gonzalez says, is reaching, almost thinking of the giraffe neck, but I'm kind of sticking my neck out here. I'm making a request which could be met with another no or go away, similarly to what just happened, that, oh, actually, my mum's not there to meet me as I want. So I love the precision that you're bringing on the specific words I can ask that can
Yeah,
help guide
yeah,
that person where I want them to go.
yeah. I think that's really valuable to make it practical. And I'll say a couple of things about that. One is, and I think this takes some learning and exploration, is to feel in the moment, what is it actually that I'm wanting right now? Because certainly for me, that's not like a habitual or a deeply developed awareness. I mean, and people can just notice in day-to-day life as people are expressing things, how often do they actually finish that expression saying what precisely they would like in return or in response. So I think that's like to really develop the practice is also to develop an attunement and a sensing inside what is it that I want, and then to ask for that. And then some specific examples, like we can just start with Tim's example. Is there a part of you that resonates with this feeling, this excitement or this sorrow, this horror, this upset? And I like his phrasing there, is there a part of you? Because that implies, well, there might be many things in you, many things going on, many feelings, but is there a part of you? Or is there any way? And with that kind of dialogue requests, we want to be clear in ourselves. Are we inviting the person to share from their inner experience, which a bit shifts the focus? Or are we inviting them to respond, but keeping the focus on us? But let's give some more examples, and maybe you have some as well, Mike. Well, the example I said before with my parents is there any part of what I shared that touches you? If let's say if what I'm really seeking is a kind of resonance or this basic feeling, like Thomas Hubel often talks about. I think maybe it's Dan Siegel's quote, that I feel you feeling me. So my core experience gets woven into relation. So requests that I might articulate to help bring that experience of feeling felt, I could just say, hey, in a very colloquial way, do you feel me?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, that's what I,
yeah,
yeah, go on.
yeah, go ahead.
'Cause yeah, I'm putting myself in a situation now with friends, say, in an everyday situation. I'm trying to play this out in my mind. Like, to me, what's coming up is this sense of like, I want it to sound every day enough that it's not jolting or that it really does flow. I also want to find the precision and the specificity in what I'm asking so that I can really get the answer that I am hoping for. For example, on one hand, they're like, are you feeling me? I love it because it flows and seems like I'd say something like that. And then I'm also wondering, yeah, about the specificity piece and whether I might be able to weave the two together. So, like, maybe just another sentence like, yeah, um, like, are you feeling me? Are you kind of, is my excitement like coming across to you,
Hmm.
landing in you?
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love the specificity of that. Is my excitement coming across to you or landing with you? Yeah. So, and I think it depends, of course, on the relation and the particular culture of relationship and how kind of amenable might this person be to um, a more naked vulnerability, which we might only discover by trying it, because we might just have gotten habituated to a certain mode of interaction and assumed certain things about the other person, which are self-fulfilling. And at least with some people, it won't be with everyone, but at least with some people, leading the way into a more vulnerable or tender relation may be actually a deep breath of fresh air, something that they wouldn't have known how to open the door to, but when you open the door and step in, they're only too glad to meet you there. And for other people, yeah, that they might be not know what to do with that kind of thing. And then we'll do more of this kind of street giraffe thing. You with me? That land for you? Does that hit home? Is that making sense in your world? Can you vibe with that? Versus the more direct, kind of tender, does any part of that touch you? Is something in that landing in your heart? How's your heart hearing me share that? Yeah.
Yeah, what comes up for you as you hear me share that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
okay, I have some questions to take you in a slightly, well, yeah, in a follow-on direction. I want to know what happens if they say no? Tim's story is a beautiful story, and I'm imagining people listening to this or watching this and going, yeah, my mum wouldn't say that. Or, there's the fear of the no. So I wonder if you could just talk to that and maybe share some thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an important eventuality to relate to, possibility. And a couple things come to mind. One is, what do we actually hear when we hear no? And I think so often reflexively, when someone says no, what we hear is something like, I don't matter. But that's not actually in those letters of NO. That's a filter which has its own reasons. Um, but actually, no is a relational expression. And if we stay in the relation and if we can bring some curiosity, maybe have some inner tenderness for those parts that get activated by hearing no, but actually stay in the here and now, then we can listen for the need behind the no. What is the person actually, like we say in NVC, there's always a yes to some other need. There's a yes behind the no. So what is the yes to? So for instance, if we think about a similar situation with another adult child and their parent telling about their child's school, and they're sharing with enthusiasm, about their child going to, let's say, some kind of holistic school, and they say, can you relate to my excitement about that? And then the parent would say, well, actually, I'm worried about, your child getting a proper education. So I could, take that into a whole rejection, resentment, critique, whatever, and we could give space for the needs behind those reactions. But I can also listen for what is that parent caring for. And then I can shift to empathy. And that's basically what I want to get in the habit of. When I hear a no, is to catch it. If somebody throws a no, to catch it. And listen for the heart of that no. Yeah, so are you worried and really wanting to trust that my child will be resilient and be able to make it in this world, perhaps having been in touch with the harshness and hardness of that? I can imagine that could be a very connecting way to meet that no, and kind of unwrap the hidden care and perhaps some of the trauma layers that are holding it tight.
This is great. I'm loving it. No, I want to just repeat some of the things I've heard. No is a relational expression, and that to me is so contradictory to how we're socialized. And even in my body, when I hear the word no, like there is a real switching off or a shutting down, which I notice, or a taking a step back. So when you said no is a relational expression, to me that brings this energy up and forward to stay in relation, to open my ears to what the no is saying yes to, and to move inward. For me, it's like an inward movement,
Yeah,
which is transformative and revolutionary.
yeah,
What you're suggesting here.
yeah. And if I just meet you in that, I think if we can like stand on the other side of things for a moment, when we say no, what happens to our sense of the relation when our no is met with a welcome, as opposed to either a pushback or a withdrawal? And for me, it's like, oh, if I bring my no and you say yes to my no, you respect my no, you welcome my no, you meet me with even a trust and a care and an inclusion for the need or the needs that I'm caring for, or trying to care for through my no, that actually creates a lot of safety for me and a sense of, okay, I can be here. I don't need to go away from here in order to protect my needs, if my needs are respected and included here, if my choice and my autonomy are respected and included here. And this is really key, and it's really key especially in the realm of requests. Because one of the key things about requests is actually that we're willing to hear a no. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what nice words we say or what tone we use. There's a tightness, there's a clinging that tends to be off-putting and to trigger people's defensiveness or protection of their autonomy. But if we're willing and capable of respecting a no, that really creates a welcome space to be in relation without having to choose either be in relation with me or in relation with your needs.
Yeah, yeah, this is big because I'm also imagining it from me saying no even just the thought that actually here comes a request and there's a no inside, immediately what arises for me is a fear of what it will do to the connection if I come with my authenticity, with my no. Like no itself, which of course is the yes inward, but there's this hesitancy or even a fear around a no as if it's like gonna damage the connection. So I'm loving the what feels to me like a complete shift around the coloring, the connotations, the embodiment of the no, and how actually no can be a leaning in, can be a possibility of staying in connection, of deepening connection. Yeah, that's what's coming up for me. Is this really like a
Yeah.
fundamental shift in what a no does or can do to a connection, to a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just getting a sense also of the intimacy that opens when a relation or a relationship can really include no. Like the fullness of embodiment. That's not like, oh, we can only connect through yes, through agreement. That there's pressure in there that's a much thinner sense versus oh, we can be here with no
Mhm.
embodiment that
Yeah.
comes through that.
Yeah, I'm breathing that in. That's amen. Yeah, I'm wishing that for us. And I'm just taking a zoom out and I'm just going to do a little bit of a summary of where I see that we're at. So we've been speaking about the possibility of taking agency for the conversation and for the connection and leaning in through a dialogue request, which keeps us in relation, in connection, and hopefully elicits the type of response we're wanting from the other person. We've touched on now when a no arises, how we can respond to that and catch that with empathy and hear the yes that the other person is sharing with us to the other needs, and we can guess and lean in further what feelings, whether it's concern and a need for a child's security, well-being, belonging in the world, acceptance, and leaning in and carrying on that way the dialogue. Um, yeah, and I'm just wondering whether there's more that wants to come out in relation to this, Danny. Anything else that you want to share on this topic?
And maybe it's by way of summary and voicing the appreciation that I'm in touch with around of my own ongoing growth, which is also fueled by this conversation, in realizing the agency or the power that I have or can have to create the quality of connection that I want, and that really gives me the sense of aliveness, of richness, of closeness, of intimacy. Yeah, Tim actually also referred to something like conversation ceramics, like fashioning the the connection as life is flowing through, and it's really for me uh, it's redemptive and exciting to really discover and develop more and feel in my body, in my heart, in my awareness, the power um, to reach forward, to reach out, to bring in, to do that with the resources, the care, the creativity, the emotional range of of embodied adult consciousness. Yeah, so I'm excited about how that has contributed to my life, and I feel kind of an eagerness to take my own next steps in realizing this even more.
Yeah, that excitement's really coming across and touches parts in me, and I feel a I feel like a familiar appreciation of how vital these conversations are with the content that we've explored to continue that imprinting in me of this other way of relating.
Totally. Me too.
Which, so maybe I'll just take this opportunity. This is something you and I are building at the moment. Well, don't know when people are listening or watching this, but we have a membership community which we're launching, which to me is a wonderful avenue to continue this stream of a different relationality as a regular part of our lives. And that's essentially, I guess, the motivation for us building that is so people can regularly have a space where they can touch into this new paradigm. So I invite people to check out our community.
Amen.